Paul is pleading with them to not go back under law. In other words, don't treat the law as a way of making yourself right with God. That's a recipe for slavery. He says in verse 9, why do you want to go back again and become slaves once more to the weak and useless spiritual principles of this world? Now, I hung out at that verse yesterday for a while. That verse, why do you want to go back again and become slaves once more to the weak and useless spiritual principles of this world? I mean, what is he talking about? That's what I wanted to really dive into yesterday in my prep time. What is he talking about when he refers to the weak and useless spiritual principles of this world? I mean, it seems serious, super serious. He's essentially saying that the weak and useless spiritual principles of this world rob us of freedom. It's a pretty serious thing. So what is he talking about? This is their issue. He in one verse, he identifies the primary issue that he's addressing in this letter. So what's he talking about? Well, a lot of people have been taught that he's referring to licentious, immoral, bad behavior. But he's not. He's not talking about bad behavior here. He's talking about bad belief. Now, as far back as I can remember, I was taught that worldliness, which is just another way of saying the same thing, that worldliness was all about lifestyle. That a worldly person was a person who was self-indulgent, a person who hung out at the wrong places with the wrong people. A worldly person is someone who has no regard for morality or God's standards and lives to satisfy their own desires. They use bad language and they do bad things. That's a worldly person. A non-worldly person, on the other hand, or a Christian, was someone who stayed away from all that stuff. They were devout. They were disciplined. They didn't sound like non-Christians. They didn't like the things that non-Christians like. That's how worldliness has been understood for a long time. In fact, entire industries were born because of this assumption. Industries. The Christian music industry, the Christian movie industry, even the Christian book industry were all born to offer Christian alternatives to worldliness. Now, I'm not saying that stuff is bad. I've written Christian books myself. I'm just saying that entire industries were born out of this assumption that this is what worldliness is. But none of that is what Paul is talking about here in this verse. All you have to do to know what he means by the weak and useless spiritual principles of this world is to read the next verse. Verse 10, you're trying to earn favor with God. You're trying to gain favor with God by doing certain things and observing certain rituals, adhering to certain traditions. G.K. Chesterton once said that tradition is the living faith of the dead. Traditionalism is the dead faith of the living. So he's not decrying tradition here, but when you depend on tradition to save you, adherence to certain traditions to save you, religious or otherwise, that's where Paul says it's a dead end. In other words, what he's saying is true worldliness. What he's talking about when he says the weak and useless spiritual principles of this world, true worldliness is thinking that you can be good enough or do enough or become enough or stay far away enough from the bad stuff that God will love you, that God will bless you.